Ladies and gentlemen, once more, welcome to the Pre-Industrial Economic Hubs Forum. This is in fact an international forum where we are trying to concretize the reindustrialization program of the province. I would like to extend my warm words of welcome to the Honorable MEC, Mr. Mabuyakhulu, who's with us today. We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Helmut Kegel, who is the Director of the European Union Secretariat for Cluster Analysis, who's joining us from Germany. We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Carlo Oliveira, who is the CEO of Leadership Business Consulting, all the way from Portugal. We would like to acknowledge the presence of the advisory team on the industrial economic hubs. I can see Mr. Louis Di Fegareto, that is here, Dr. Monde Mianda, that is here, Mr. Mkwanaz, that is here. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the CEO of the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone is with us today. I can see also we've got members of the chamber that is with us. I can see also Mr. Ibrahim Patel. Let me also acknowledge also the presence of Mr. Kumede, who is a professor at Wits University, who's also going to be a moderator for today. I can see he's with us here today. Let me also acknowledge members of the municipality. I can see different municipal representatives that are with us today. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, let me also pay a special welcome to you who are joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, as you would know very well, that 2.5 years ago, the Honorable MEC Michael Mabuyakhulu had a dream. This dream was that any country in the world, for it to develop, it's important that it disaggregate the economic outlook and focus on specific thing with particular focus. What he indicated was that there is no country among the developing countries, even among those that have developed, whether you talk about China, whether you talk about South Korea, and many more, that have developed without using manufacturing as a core focus. Unless you are able to produce, unless you are able to develop what is called an industrial kitchen, you can never be able to develop and become competitive in the international markets. The idea of the industrial economic hubs was born out of that particular idea, where as a province, as a department, we sought to achieve three things. One, we said, what is it that is competitive for ourselves that we need to be able to focus on? Two, what is it that we need to do to reindustrialize the economy of KwaZulu-Natal? And three, what is it we need to do that we can be able to ensure that we've got inclusive growth, growth that is able to create jobs. And a result of that, we then came in with the idea of the industrial economic hubs. These hubs today, you'll hear colleagues that are going to be talking about them. What are they? What is the international best practice? What has been achieved today? Where are we as a province? Where do we want to see ourselves in the next 30 years? So today, colleagues, we've got our international forum, which would like to see discussions and debates around how do we roll out these particular industrial economic hubs in a real sense. As you would know very well, industrial economic hubs, you may call them economic clusters. You can also call them the special economic zones. You can call them the industrial zones, different names, but by and large, it's how do we cluster the economy for a particular economic output. So that is the reason that we are here. As you would know very well, that next year we will then have the real international forum where we'll be having discussions. Before I, in fact, call to the podium the Honorable MEC, I want to indicate to the colleagues that this is not a talk shop forum. It's going to be distinct in a sense that we are going to be having areas of focus. I'll take you through them. But at the forum next year, we will not be talking in a form of a talk shop. We will be doing what is called deal making. In the investment banking language, we will be putting down what is called tombstones, where we'll be able to say between now and February, what are those concrete deals that have been able to be realized for each and every industrial economic hubs, and in fact we'll be announcing them. So that is going to be the distinguishing feature of the forum next year. Very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, you've got a program in front of you. We've got the opening, which is going to be done by the Honorable MEC, Mr. Michael Mabuyakhulu, who's going to take us through the industrial economic hubs. But in the main, MEC Mabuyakhulu will be talking about the economic policy of KwaZulu-Natal and the role of the industrial economic hubs. So, so that is the Honorable MEC, what he's going to be doing. Didi Jintlego will take us through the objectives and the challenges that are facing the hubs. We're going to be having Mr. Helmut Kegel, who's going to be sharing the best practice as well as the case studies in the developing markets. Then after that, we're going to be having investment trends, challenges in the world, Africa and Asia, Mr. Carlo Oliveira. After that, we will break for tea. We will then break into different working groups, which working groups I'll be able to announce to you where in fact we'll be meeting. We'll then be coming back again to the panel where we'll be exchanging views facilitated by Professor William Gumede. And after that, we'll then be joined by the Honorable MEC, Mr. Michael Mabuyakhulu, to close up the session. It's supposed to be very brief, very short, business-like, so that at least we know that we are laying a fertile ground for the actual international forum next year. Ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me to call to the podium the Honorable MEC Michael Mabuyakhulu. I know he looks very young there in the picture. He has grown, you know, since then. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Golding. Indeed, I must confess, I'm still young, Mr. Golding. Probably I'll get older in about 2 to 3 decades from now. Let me greet each and every one of you present here, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, compatriots, both that come from within our shores and those who come from outside our shores. On behalf of the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, we really want to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you for being part and parcel of this important gathering this morning. It is indeed an honor for us to address you at this important Industrial Hubs pre-forum meeting. And this pre-forum meeting marks yet another critical step towards the delivery of the Industrial Hubs in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And as you are all aware, a lot of work has already been done over the past 2 years towards the establishment of these hubs in our province. Precisely because of the importance of the hubs, in the long term, we must say that we believe that these hubs will have a positive impact in the development of our economy. And South Africa as a country, and KwaZulu-Natal being part of South Africa, we took a very conscious decision when all of us agreed to have the Industrial Policy Action Plan, when we also agreed to have the new growth path, but also, as we all aware, the National Development Plan clearly indicates the critical importance of increasing the manufacturing base of the country, and therefore focusing our economy once again to manufacturing. And as a country, we have a reason to feel that we should be focusing on the issue of the reindustrialization of our economy. And all of us, those who have been able to follow, will do attest that at some point, manufacturing used to contribute around about 20.9% to the total GDP. It is now down to around about, almost about below 12% on national average. In Kwazulu-Natal, of course, our contribution is higher than the national average at around about 16%. So the reason why we are focusing on this, ladies and gentlemen, is that Kwazulu-Natal wants to build, like South Africa, a productive economy. We also want to be able to do business and to trade with other nations of the world. And it is clear to us, taking our leave, particularly from the national government, where at national level, the government has decided that it will have the special economic zones. We have decided as a province that we will be introducing the industrial hubs. And clearly speaking, we want to see the synergies between, of course, the special economic zones or the ITZs or the clusters of industries or industrial parks, whatever terminology you choose to use. We are very clear that there should be, therefore, very clear synergies. And in our view, the intention, of course, is that as a country, we should then be able to increase the economic activity. And as a result of this, we are determined to overcome the challenges of slow growth, of economic weaknesses, and the weak global institutions. And we are prepared, therefore, to step up our efforts to achieve strong, sustainable, and balanced growth, and the growth that creates jobs as well. We are implementing the industrial structural reforms to lift the growth in private sector activity, recognizing that well-functioning markets are underpinned by prosperity. We will ensure, of course, that macroeconomic policies are appropriate to support growth and strengthen demand and to promote the global rebalancing. This and other statements paint a picture of the world leaders that have now just met in the G20 that have been speaking about contributing into at least driving a 2% growth at a global level. And in our country, as well as in our province, we have accepted the fact that the radical interventions need to be brought to bear if the world and the national economies are to deal with the challenges faced by their populations. The Kwazulu-Natal Industrial Economic Hubs intervention is seen in the context of being a radical intervention for socio-economic development, and particularly is seen to be a bold position on our side, once again, to focus in the reindustrialization of our provincial economy within the context of Greater South Africa, of course. Naturally, governments do not only have to look at the demand side, but also need to strengthen the supply side economic intervention. This is exactly what the Kwazulu-Natal Industrial Hubs seeks to do. An industrial economic hub is a strategically planned concentration of industrial activity and economic linkages. So the industrial activity is typically manifested in a community of manufacturing businesses seeking enhanced economic performance through collectively managed resources like energy, water, waste management, sewer articulation services, among others. A hub therefore seeks to use this manufacturing node to spur economic growth and employment, and this is one thing that our country and our province needs the most. And beyond manufacturing, what truly makes each operation a hub are the other ancillary activities such as trade, research, and development. enterprise development, as well as economic transformation. It is important for us, just as a country and as a province, as we begin this journey, that we should also take a leaf from other nations that have traversed this journey before us. In the United States of America, for instance, a nation which shared more than 3 million industrial jobs during the 2008 economic recession, industrial expansion has already seen that country creating an average of 330,000 jobs since 2010. And according to the 2013 edition of Forbes magazine, the large metro areas with the most momentum in expanding their manufacturing sectors are also highly ranked as cities that are generating the most number of jobs overall. This is not a phenomenon unique to the United States only. In India, the town of Badi in the Himachal Pradesh has emerged as a major industrial hub whose excellencies lie in the production of pharmaceutical products. The town is now responsible for the supply of more than half of the subcontinent's pharmaceutical production. The town owes its success to an alluring investor packages such as a 100% outright exercise duty exemption for a period of 10 years. 100% income tax exemption for an initial period of 5 years, and thereafter 30% for companies for a further period of 5 years. So as a result, it has been able to attract major multinational companies, among which can be counted as Palmolive and Johnson & Johnson, to set up operations in that town. A similar pattern has also developed on the African continent, where countries like Ethiopia, keen to capitalize on the positive sentiment being shown internationally on the African market continent, have embarked on a gradual shift away from farming in favor of becoming a hub for textiles and other industries. To achieve this goal and mindful of the benefits of the industrial economic hubs, the country has set aside a sum of $250 million to expand the existing Bow-Lemi industrial hub and also establish a new industrial hub in the town of Kilinto. The economic rationale for embarking on the industrial economic hubs for the province of Kwazulu-Natal is informed by the need to kickstart economic activity to propel the provincial economy into a higher growth. As mentioned earlier, this need emanates from the lackluster performance of the economy in the aftermath, of course, of the 2008-2009 economic downturn. Our economy has not kept up with its peers in terms of both economic growth and trade. We are lagging behind. It's a point I'm sure all of us would recognize. This decisive and bold industrial hubs intervention is made with a view of dealing with unemployment, inequality, and poverty. Of course, I must put this point in context. We do not see this as a panacea for our challenges. However, we see it as one of the critical elements that can be able to catapult us in particular, that can give us a base from which we can begin to re-industrialize South Africa's economy. So the main economic reasons for embarking on these initiatives are clearly to respond to the adverse socio-economic conditions in the province, are also aimed to address our spatial development. It is also aimed to give us some leverage to intervene on the production side of the economy. And for us, as a government of the province, we also want to use this opportunity because it will give us a platform for us to be able to provide economic opportunities for local economic development. In other words, it is important for us to focus on the issue of the localization, because that would allow us to develop some of the enterprises as well as local economies that will be key to the contribution to the gross domestic product. So the theoretical underpinning of this initiative is a typical Keynesian argument of restarting economic activity through partnering or later transfer the private sector to drive the commerce. And this approach requires active participation by the various social partners such as government, business, labor, as well as organs of civil society that must, all of us, be able to come together to participate in building a growing and a redistributive economy. Critical issues for Kwazulu-Natal as we embark on this journey. We must say that we are now dealing with how best to implement industrial hubs. We are at a critical stage of engaging partners, as well as tenants and stakeholders that we think are crucial to become our partners in this journey. We fully understand the principle that a harmonious development of the industrial economic hubs projects requires negotiations, consultation, coordination, as well as cooperation, almost by all the parties to create these hubs that will be compelling engines of economic development, as well as that within these hubs, we should then put forward bankable investment projects because we want to attract investors, both domestically but also from the foreign direct investments. What is very clear is that we want to create space for all of those that want to come into these hubs to be able to find a space for them to be able to partner with us in these hubs. So from the point of view, we are almost delineating the responsibilities of each one of us. We know our responsibilities as government, both provincially, nationally, as well as local. But we also say that there are also regulators that should work together with us that have got certain responsibilities in terms of the founding legislations that brings them to bear. On the one hand, we have business, that we are also wanting to partner with business for them to come into these hubs. And we also want to focus particularly in enticing business to ensure that you both have ventures between South African businesses as well as other businesses outside of our borders. On the side of labor, it's going to be important that as we embark on this, we generate some kind of an understanding and a shared vision that for us to be able to have these hubs so that they can thrive and they can become competitive against other hubs elsewhere in the world. One of the things we're going to have in these hubs is industrial peace. And therefore, we would want to advocate a process in which there are no adversarial approaches within the industrial hubs, but rather there is cooperation and working together. Of course, within the framework of the national labor markets that are regulated in this country. On the issue of civil society, we feel that civil society has a role to play in many ways. Particularly, we want to encourage young people to be able to acquire new skills so that they can also be able to get job opportunities within the hubs. But some of these sectors, as we say, they would require people who have got the highest levels of skills. And it is therefore in our collective interest that in these hubs, we are able to encourage young people and we link them to opportunities. But on the other hand, they also have got support from the whole society for them to play their role, both as future citizens and as well as leaders of this country. I will not go into the details of what is contained in the hubs, and I will leave those to the various presenters, and I think I will leave that to Mr. Ntlego, who is dealing with this, the Deputy Director General who is dealing with this. And mine is just going to be able to dealing directly to say, with the key areas of industry support measures that we want to put together, must focus on some other things that can make these hubs to become competitive. And I think the point must be made clearly that these hubs are different than your special economic zones. Your special economic zones are defined in terms of the national legislation and the National Act. And the industrial hubs are a provincial initiative of Kwazulu-Natal, and therefore, being the provincial initiative, we would like to create both the backward and forward linkages between the two industrial special economic zones that we have in the province, which are now designated as industrial development zones, the IDZs. But going forward, we want to see a seamless linkages between the two, as well as the 10 industrial hubs that we'll be having in Kwazulu-Natal. And therefore, we are looking at what can we deal with as the issues of better offerings within these hubs, focusing on issues of competitive rental rates, focusing on issues of infrastructure support, focusing on issues of adequate supply, as well as subsidized rates for water and electricity. In other words, talking about what is called the administered prices, focusing on the issues of service industrial land, focusing on issues of funding support for investors, focusing on issues of policy and strategy refinement where it is required, focusing on issues of research and development facilities, because in some of these hubs, we are focusing that you are going to have to attract enterprises and entrepreneurs who may be smaller businesses, and we may then have to pull together the resources and the cost for R&D. The issues of incubation facilities, that those businesses that are establishing themselves within the industrial hubs, how to ensure that in their first 2 to 3 years, the rate of failure is mitigated so that we are able to have successful industrial hubs. Of course, learning from other destinations where the issues of incubation has been approached with a high degree of success. Focusing on issues of responsible remuneration packages as well as salaries that are taking place, ensuring that, of course, you do not suffocate industrial hubs, but of course, without talking about paying exploitative and slavery wages, but within reason, talking about what is in the best interest of South Africa, that all of us, we can be able to make a sacrifice for, so that we can actually share in the greater spoils that we can derive from the growth that we can generate out of this. Focusing on issues around trade facilities, as well as raw material sourcing. Now, it is important, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that in dealing with all of these matters, what we are now doing as a province is that we are now entering what we regard as an extremely important phase and process of setting up the industrial hubs, and where we have now defined some of the time frames of the thing that needs to be done and when can we deliver them. And as a result of this, it is important that we have put in certain specific time frames of achieving certain results and milestones. The first among those is an issue of appointment of project facilitation unit. This unit will align the project plans and timelines to lift the overall objectives, and its appointment should be conducted by the end of the year, because we think it is important that we should have this project facilitation unit at least up and coming before the end of the calendar year 2014. The second is that we want to package industry support measures as I've outlined, and consensus is to be reached with various stakeholders to ensure continuity. And we hope that if everything goes well, we should, by the end of the first quarter of next year, have concluded the process of discussions and consultation in a concretely putting forward what we think are the industry support measures that we as a province would like to put into these industrial economic hubs. The third of those is stakeholder engagement, which is ongoing. We've committed ourselves that we are going to have district coordinating forum which are going to be in each of these districts with a view of ensuring that there is participation across by all social partners so that there is consensus as we go forward. But consensus does not mean that all of us should agree in everything. We're speaking here, ladies and gentlemen, of sufficient consensus. And South Africans know that in 1993, when we put together the South African Constitution and the interim Constitution, we didn't speak about that everybody had to sign, to cross the T's and put the dots. We spoke of sufficient consensus. And indeed, even here, the spirit is of sufficient consensus. In other words, there should be no one who wants to hold back the process because he or she still does not agree with us in everything. The fourth one is an issue of publicizing HUBS in digital print and roadshows, as well as presentations which we think should be made on this, which will be ongoing, of course. 5, investment attraction using the investment forum, including the investment squad, as well as trade and investment Kwazulu-Natal, which we think we must now start putting together teams that we will be earmarking them as investment squad. I can safely indicate to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the process has now begun in earnest, where we want to identify both South Africans but also people who are our friends elsewhere in the world, whom we are going to rope them in as part of the investment squad. They'll work with our teams, but we want to get people who really will help us with the issues of investment traction into these industrial economic hubs. The issues of environmental impact assessments should be dealt with as early as we can, and we can say that we have already begun the issue of site coordinations, where we're now beginning to investigate whether there are any environmental issues, and we're taking a proactive approach with regard to this. 7 is the issue of land acquisition, including revaluation where it is relevant. This has already begun. The process will, of course, depend, as I indicated, on the EIA processes and whether indeed you can have partial processes of EIAs or you'll have to go through the full-blown EIA processes. The issue of servicing of land, such as with electricity and water, in all of the sites that we are earmarked for these industrial economic hubs, we are looking to working with municipalities as well as the water services authorities in identifying the issues around the availability of your bulk services. And this is an issue we are discussing, of course, with municipalities, including, in this particular instance, the municipal development agencies that exist in the various districts throughout the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And our intention, of course, is that we want to be able to get at least the preliminary results by the end of February 2015 with regard to this matter. We are also focusing around attracting tenants and getting agreements in place, and we are indeed beginning to intensify this approach between now and February 2015. And again, as I say, it's going to be an ongoing matter, but clearly speaking, we now know in each of these industrial hubs who are the strategic investors that we'd like to attract as our anchor investors in these industrial economic hubs. This does not mean, therefore, that we will then only focus on them, but it means that we do have in our attraction approach certain specific investors that already we have begun to trace. And it is on that spirit that both the investment squad, but as well as the teams that have been working together with us on the issues of feasibility and the others that have been advising us, that will continue to actually provide both the professional advice, but also become useful experts at our disposal for this work to be accomplished. 10, we are also saying we need to develop the development of infrastructure with relevant public and private partners is envisaged to begin in the next 10 months' time. And 11, that we want to see the appointment of developers, which is envisaged to happen again in a period of 10 months from now. As we have begun to earmark that construction and building work using relevant standards is envisaged to begin in the next 15 months' time. And I must say that there are industrial hubs where we already have existing infrastructure, existing buildings, existing resources, particularly those that are within the disposal and the jurisdiction of the Italian Development Finance Corporation. But of course, in other districts, we do not have that, so we'll have greenfield projects, or in some instances also brownfield projects. So the appointment of management boards while preserving the public interest and aiming of an industrial property estate management is envisaged to happen within the next 20 months from now. So contracting and commissioning with a minimum of 30% developed space is envisaged to be concluded in 24 months' time from now. So clearly, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of work has gone into implementing and consolidating the first planning phase of these industrial economic hubs. So as we do this, in terms of the first phase, we're also acutely aware that the success of these hubs depends on a number of prerequisites, critical of which is the attraction of business and investment into these hubs. So the role of government with regards to this intervention is to create an enabling environment as well as to catalyze the industrial economic hubs implementation. The actual work, however, will be driven by the private sector. It is on this basis, therefore, that we do make a clarion call, both to the private sector in our country, to also see an opportunity going forward, but also to go beyond the borders of our country. It is for this reason that we have invited you here to this initial forum, because we believe that as we begin this journey, if we actually are traversing this journey alone, of course we will feel very lonely. But if we traverse this journey with you, each and every one of you, not only will we accomplish the work at hand, but I must indicate we will feel the warmth and the love of each and every one of you. You will rub your enthusiasm, your vigor, and your response, and you will make us to achieve this work much more faster than we think. So most of you know the story of the potential of Kwazulu-Natal. And all of us know that this province, a strategic location, that the rise of the African economies and the level of investment in infrastructure that this province and the provincial government as well as national government has been embarking upon in projects that are inclusive of the Durban Trade Port, the new Durban Decard Port, potential Decard Port, as well as the Richards Bay Harbors. All of this work clearly illustrates the commitment of government, that indeed as government, we want to be able to seize the opportunities that are presented both by our comparative as well as our competitive advantages. All of these and other factors, ladies and gentlemen, mean nothing if they are not harnessed to contribute to the growth and development of the economy. And an economy that should grow faster, but an economy that should actually create opportunities for us all. An economy where we as South Africans, we as the people of this province, as we build this economy, should also be proud that we are part and parcel of building an economy that caters for us all. So this morning's session, therefore, is an invitation to all our social partners, including the private sector, to leverage the opportunities that have been created by the public sector. The global competitiveness of the economy of our country and our ability to address the challenges that face our society, as well as the ability to do the roaring business, all depends, ladies and gentlemen, on how we utilize the opportunity that has been created, and that these industrial hubs present us that opportunity. Once again, I'm not saying that industrial hubs will become the panacea of our challenges as a country and as a province. However, we think they give us a serious platform for us to talk about, once again, increasing South Africa's manufacturing base. And I just want to end by saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, that we present to you the industrial hubs. We present to you our commitment as government to spend the resources that are within our disposal in ensuring that Kwazulu-Natal participate in growing its manufacturing base. And we do so because I really believe that if you look at South Africa today, and we know that we are the second biggest contributor to GDP of the country as Kwazulu-Natal, and we know that Gauteng is leading, is the industrial hub of South Africa. But if we actually just picture this in the next 20 to 25 or 30 years, and we ask where will South Africa be, and where should Kwazulu-Natal be, the answer will be very easy. The Gauteng economy is going to continue to become a financial service-driven economy and other service-related sectors. The Kwazulu-Natal economy, because of its location with the two biggest ports in the country, but also with an international airport, but also with the best road conditions as well as the rail infrastructure. The government is investing quite a lot of money into it in its upgrade. That clearly should make us to become the industrial maker of South Africa. It can only happen when we both have the vision, but we also have got the ability to be able to take that vision to fruition. That we have, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm therefore saying to you, in the next 15, 20 years, we will be the biggest industrial base of South Africa. And now we are still the second biggest industrial base. Second, because the East Rand is the first biggest industrial base. We're not competing with the East Rand. We're not competing with any other part of South Africa, but we are competing with other parts of the world. A do-nothing scenario is no scenario for us. And therefore, join us in this journey, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to tell you, those who will be the first, if you use the first mover concept in these industrial hubs, those who will be the first to move in these industrial hubs, they will not regret it. Today, those who have become the first to move in the Dube Trade Port, which is now been designated as an industrial development zone, do not regret it. So are those who have been the first to move in the Richards Bay ITZ are not regretting it. So we will not regret it, but rather we will all be able to go back and look back and rejoice about what we were able to do together to once again to grow the manufacturing base of South Africa. Thank you very much.